So this panel is about the strengthening Ukraine's energy system. My name is Jane Nakano. I'm a senior fellow with the Energy Security and Climate Change program here at CSIS. We have been hearing and reading quite a bit about what's happening in Ukraine, including what's happening to the state of energy sector. 2.5 years since the Russian attack on Ukraine, infrastructure that is really the backbone of the modern economy, and also the supply of energy that's really the lifeblood of economy, are under significantly strained. According to the Ukrainian government sources, roughly half of Ukraine's energy infrastructure has been either damaged or destroyed. Roughly 80% of the thermal power plant capacity has been destroyed. This is a really important data point, because for countries, when you look towards the immediate horizon, the status of infrastructure is extremely important. That really affects the pace of reconstruction, the type of things that you can do. So we are here joined by speakers and experts from both Ukraine and also from the US government to really talk about the status, but then also what are some of the attributes that we want to see in Ukraine's future energy system, and also the role of the United States, and also, I guess broadly speaking, US and other non-Ukrainian investments and the role of private capital. So what I'm going to do is, without reading, instead of reading all their resumes, which you do have in your hands, I'd like to invite each panelist to speak for 2 to 3 minutes, probably 2 minutes. That way we'll be able to have good moderated discussion. So you'll get as much out of these people's brains, and so as you think of how we can work together towards the reconstruction of Ukraine. So to the first is Nadia Petrochenko. She is right there, 2 doors down, if you will. She is the Chief Business Officer with SPP Development Ukraine. The floor is yours for 2 minutes. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. It is an honor to be here with you, here in Washington, D.C., the city that symbolizes the very ideals of freedom, resilience, and pursuit of progress, values that resonate deeply with us at SPP Development Ukraine. In 2019, my brother and I founded SPP Development Ukraine with a clear and unwavering vision to transform Ukraine's energy landscape, making it flexible, resilient, and transparent. From the very beginning, we faced immense challenges that have only intensified over time. But still, knowing what we do now, we would undertake this journey all over again. SPP Development Ukraine has been more than just a company. Our company, we are engaging in the reconstruction of energy infrastructure already devastated by Russian aggression starting from 2014. When the war escalated in 2022, our first priority was to ensure the safety of our people and uninterrupted operation of over 100 megawatts under our care. And I'm incredibly proud to say that we faced these challenges strong, and we continue our work right now. Despite the ongoing war, despite the enormous pressure, we made a critical decision: no layouts, no salary cuts. This decision has not only strengthened our team, but also bolstered entire energy sector in Ukraine. And currently, we are the key developer in Ukraine, which has a promising pipeline which consists of solar, wind farm, and battery storage system. And we are continuing the building energy facilities in Ukraine, because this is not just about the power we generate. It's about the vital services. It's about the food, healthcare, and other essentials which communities rely on. At SPP Development Ukraine, we pledge to lead the way towards Ukraine's future defined by transparency and reliability. We envision a future sculpted by collaboration, open dialogue, and shared objectives. To conclude my introduction, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to the American government and the people of the United States for your unwavering support of our fights for freedom. Your assistance helped us to stand strong, move forward in meeting our faith in victory. I am truly grateful to everyone and each of you, and thank you for such opportunity to discuss such important energy sphere about Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. Next, to my immediate left is Olena Pavlenko. She is the president and co-founder of Dixie Group. The floor is yours for a 2-minute opening remarks.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today to this honorable audience. I've been here last year, and we also discussed the situation in the energy sector before the winter and the reconstruction, and we discussed that immediate needs would cost Ukraine around $1 billion and reconstruction around $10 billion. We discussed last year 3 priorities which should be taken by the government for business development, which is access to data, which is the good regulation, and also a good vision of the country, how to move forward with the energy sector development. Just briefly mention that after this 1 year, a lot has been changed. Unfortunately, we have even more destroyed energy infrastructure, both generation and transmission and distribution as well. Last year, we started our winter with around 20 gigawatts of capacity. This winter, we will have, I think, barely 12, just my estimates. We don't have official data available. So, and if we have a peak of consumption around 18 gigawatts, it means that in cold winter, we might have around 5 gigawatts of capacity lacking, which means that if this is not a question whether there will be outages, electricity outages or no, this is a question how long they will last. And if you look at what we already lost since the full-scale invasion, it's around 25 gigawatts, which is equal to the Greece installed electricity capacity. It's equal to the country generation. And I think this is very important that we meet today, and thank you very much for coming, because for us it's just even more important to discuss both immediate needs and a long-term reconstruction with all of you, and to think together how to survive this winter, but also we kind of have to build our energy system from the scratch. And it is really important to discuss and to think how this scratch and how this way should look like. I will be happy to elaborate more on my thoughts and my propositions, but maybe we'll pass the floor to you, Chair, and we'll be happy to talk later.
Thank you so much, Olena. Next, let me invite Alexander Romanishin, who is the strategy director with Razom We Stand. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And it's my pleasure definitely to be here with you and discuss really hot topics right now for Ukraine. And not only for Ukraine, but for security of Europe, because energy security is kind of the top priority for us and on European level. I represent Razom We Stand. It's a Ukrainian NGO, but we operate globally, internationally. We have presence in Berlin, in Brussels, in London, and DC, and we do advocate. We advocate 3 levels of issues. One of the issues is a total ban for import of gas and oil from Russia. Europe, for the last 2 years, 2.5 years of the war, imported almost 200 billion euro from Russia. It's a lot. And we need to help to make this energy transition for Europe, to avoid import from Russia. It's the first point. The second is decentralization for Ukraine. So we need to build back better Ukraine, and we support renewable projects in Ukraine, and we want to mobilize capital for this. It's the second dimension that we are doing, and the third one is stop investment in Russian oil and gas sector. As of now, based on our research, over $140 billion is still in Russian oil and gas companies. They're not withdrawable. So, and our aim is to stop investment in Russia and to mobilize investment to renewables for Ukraine. That's kind of three key layers which I would like to elaborate more. And in terms of the most important issue right now is decentralizations. And during this week, many mayors from Ukraine come to Washington, D.C. We met with DFC, we met with another American bank, with another financial institution. So we want to help local government to connect directly to the source of capital, so to make deal quickly. So we need quick win-win right now and not wait time until central government will do something. So we should do by themselves. So this is cities here, and I will elaborate a little bit more what cities brings here.
Great, thank you so much, Alexander. The next is Carlos de Juana. He's the Managing Director for Europe, among many other important portfolios, with the Office of Foreign Policy, with the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jane. And thank you, CSIS, for hosting this. I think it's really important, given everything that's going on in Ukraine, for CSIS to bring different people together from Ukraine, from the community in here in Washington, and think tanks community, and the investor community, most importantly, to hear what's going on and to make those connections. DFC, if folks aren't aware, is one of the newer three-letter agencies in Washington. We're the International Development Finance Corporation. We're basically America's modern development finance bank. We have a mandate from Congress to finance, do development finance in some of the world's poorest countries, and also to pursue projects that are in line with our U.S. national priorities, our U.S. policy. So I can't think of a better place than Ukraine where we can be doing that. We've actually been working in Ukraine since the country became independent and have a lot of experience there. So when Russia began this latest invasion in 2022, we really looked at what we could do to help the much broader U.S. effort to support Ukraine with our tools. We have a number of tools at our disposal that we are using. We have debt financing to make loans, guarantees, loan portfolio guarantees, where we work very closely with our colleagues in USAID to support local banks. We also have political risk insurance, which has been a big topic of discussion in Ukraine and a big area for us. We also have the ability to do equity and the ability to do technical assistance. So we've really taken all of these tools and tried to really lean in as much as we can in Ukraine, both in the energy sector, but really across the economy, to help with the wartime economy and also to lay the foundations for that eventual reconstruction and recovery whenever it happens. We've been really working on that. We've, over the last 2.5 years, we've about doubled the size of our portfolio. We've committed over $900 million in new transactions. And obviously right now, a lot of the discussion is focused on energy. We have done some energy projects in the past, and we're looking at some energy transactions. And it's really an area where we obviously want to lean in. We had the pleasure of hosting a number of mayors yesterday where they talked about their needs and requirements, and I'm looking forward to having some follow-up conversations there to see where we can help out. As I mentioned, we really want to do as much as we can in Ukraine, and I think we're doing quite a lot and want to do more, and look forward to this conversation. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Last but not least, Tomas Ocherimovich, sorry, I butchered your last name. He's a partner with Future of Ukraine Global Leader with Deloitte Central Europe. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jane, and thank you, CSIS, for having us again this year at this very important conference. I represent Deloitte Ukraine, where we still have over 500 people working on the ground. But more importantly, I represent Deloitte Future of Ukraine initiative, which is our global initiative to help Ukraine rebuild, where Deloitte has 450,000 people, and across that people we're mobilizing the expertise to help government of Ukraine, cities, donors, to design and implement rebuild plans, and then attract private business, attract our clients, engage our clients to the topic of reconstruction of Ukraine. And energy is one of the key themes that we focusing on and bringing our expertise and our relationships. One, obviously for the short-term needs, but more importantly, you all probably know that energy will be critical for the long-term success of Ukraine, because the energy prices will drive then everything, just like land prices will drive the overall competitiveness of Ukraine's economy in the long term, its success within EU, because this will also be a key issue in terms of the carbon issues and the carbon border adjustment mechanism. So Ukraine's energy sector is critical for the long term. It will be one of the key drivers of the reconstruction. It will be one of the key drivers of the green transition in Europe, and not only Ukraine's stability and resilience, but also overall sort of European energy resilience and stability, as Ukraine is looking to build this green energy hub for Europe, so that we all rely much less on the energy from the aggressor.
Thank you so much, Tomas. Now I'd like to start some moderated discussion. I have a lot of questions, but I think first, if I may turn to Nadia, you gave us a picture of what is happening, the extent of challenge. But if you can also elaborate a little more about what are some of the responses that are taking place to infrastructure damages, and who are the people that are sort of active in this space within Ukraine? The type of stakeholders, not necessarily sort of a financing side, but what's the role of the private sector and sort of a private, not just the business side, but obviously NGOs are quite active. If you can just give us a little more sort of a picture of how that's going, and also are there some challenges that you're seeing? What are the types and
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to say that private business, we as a private business, we didn't back down because we cannot and we will not. Our conducting business is also our resilience, and it's also our fighting. And I can say that we are engaged in the front lines, not for just energy independence, but for our nation's survival and future. And that's why we are continuing our work as a business. Moreover, it's really enormous pressures and biggest challenges we faced when the war escalated. But private business in Ukraine, in energy sphere, continue the work. You know that numbers of our energy facilities devastated by Russian aggression and damages. And for today, for us, it's not just the way we generate power, it's really essential needs for our communities. You can imagine that we can have electricity like 10, 12 hours per day. And it's not only for the business, it's for the householders, it's for the children, it's for the hospitals, it's for the school. That's why it's also our resilience to continue our work. And we're really proud that private sector in Ukraine, private business, they continue that work. We have some support from local banks. They're providing for us the financial, and it helps us to build new generation facility right now. And for sure, what we're expecting as well, we're expecting that foreign companies, will do such efforts right now. We need these efforts right now, not after our victory, but now, because we are living now, and this is energy requested now. And thanks to colleagues who are sitting here, they do numbers, how to support, how to progress with Ukrainian business, and it's helped us to move in and to correspond their requirements. And I'm pretty sure that in near future, we will increase our generation capabilities as well.
Thank you, Nadia. Anyone else who would like to jump in and add any comments? Then, this is, I mean, it's really, hard to just even imagine, but I guess, life must go on. And as you said, the people's needs, it's not just sort of a businesses, but, hospitals, schools, and it's, it really, thank you for sort of giving us, little more concrete pictures of the sort of scale and the challenges. And I think, some of the panelists already alluded to, some of their sort of ideas and visions for how, the future, Ukrainian energy system may look like, whether it's the, where the infrastructure may be or what type of infrastructure, as well as energy resource mix, if you will. So I wanted to sort of, shift that conversation, shift the conversation towards that. Like, so what are the visions? What are some of the attributes that you're looking to stress for sustained, robust and resilient energy system to support, the recovery, but then onwards. So let me then turn to Olena. So, I wanted to, you lead this, one of the leading Ukrainian think tanks, and I'd love to get your thoughts as to, what are some of the both near-term, but then also long-term measures that you think are necessary to restore Ukraine's energy system?
Thank you. So in a short term, I think we should very much focus on how we should keep the electricity running to the consumers. And here I would mention 3 factors. One is definitely protection. Not all the objects in Ukraine are still fully protected with 3 levels of protection, so we need to do that. And it's passive protection, but we also need air defense. I will continue saying this, that we do need air defense, because in March, when we lost a huge generation capacity, it was also due to the lack of air defense system and equipment. Second is, for this winter, is reserve generation. Yes, this is basic fossil fuels solutions, generators and diesel, but unfortunately this winter fossil fuels might save people's lives. So communities, especially local communities, cities, they do need the generators to keep hospitals, critical infrastructure running, water, sewage, other stuff. And third is decentralized generation. And here we need different types of generation. I think we have good projects now where when hospitals, schools are installing renewable solar panels together with the batteries in order to have some electricity even in the winter. We have some programs which the Ministry of Economy started and announced for the consumers, also to install renewable solutions on the rooftop. But also the mid-size, I would say, cities are looking for gas peakers, gas turbines, something which also can keep the infrastructure running. So all types of decentralized generation, all possibilities are, I think Ukraine will greatly appreciate. We had a meeting with French business associations 2 weeks ago, and we also discussed the short-term needs and actions. And we came up to one of the idea, which I will also think it would be worthwhile to mention, is the need to work on 2 levels. One is national level, and we discussed this work through the rapid response unit of the Ministry of Energy, which is created. And I'm happy to say that Dixie is helping with that, with support of the USAID. But also with Ukraine Energy Support Fund. I'm happy to explain you more the channels of support at the national level. But what the French business discussed also, the possibility to go into the municipalities level and work with them, because you have big cities who are prepared for the winter, but the small cities, towns, communities, they will suffer if they are not, if no one can help them. In the long-term perspective, I think we have good news here, finally good news. Last time I announced that Ukraine started to draft National Energy and Climate Plan till 2030. This is a document, a strategy which every EU country has to develop and adopt, and Ukraine has to do the same under the association agreement and accession negotiations. So I'm happy to say that such National Energy and Climate Plan was developed and adopted, and Dixie Group contributed to the drafting of that. The government adopted it in June this year, and it has very particular targets for the energy and climate till 2030. For example, it says that there should be 25% of renewables in the electricity generation balance till 2030. Or it states that there should be 40% of decarbonized heating till 2035. There should be a decarbonization of transport, energy efficiency, quite a lot, and now the government has to develop policies in order to implement that. And we also are discussing the possibility to start with demonstration projects on different topics, on different, like energy efficiency, on decarbonization of transport, just to understand how to scale up then these projects. And I'm happy to say that we just also recently, last week, we had a study tour to Boston, Massachusetts, to Framingham. We took some mayors and government officials to show how one of the shallow geothermal model works, utility-owned model works for heating and cooling in the US. And this is actually utility-owned. It's interesting also for business, yes? Still quite a challenge for Ukraine because it has a high capex. But if we can discuss this with donors, with international partners, that kind of solutions could be really helpful for Ukraine, yes? Because this is new. This will run for 50 years. This is our decarbonization efforts. This is local, this is resilient, and this is fossil fuel free. So quite a lot of arguments which can, yes, convince international partners to work. And maybe I will finish saying what exactly is needed to make these targets to be implemented in Ukraine. And those are new technologies, like geothermal, as I said, and we still should and have to look for these other new technologies in the EU and the US, because we have to leapfrog. You have to leapfrog with something which will be actual in 10, in 15, in 20 years. Then we have to discuss the finance, because the government does not have money and consumers do not have money. And to get investments, to work with investors, yes, we do have to improve regulatory, we have to improve our legislation, but we also have to sit down with MDBs, with IFIs, and think how to develop proper incentives for the investments. And I think we still are not there with MDBs, with the IFIs. And third is air defense system, and I will continue saying that because and sanctions, because as soon as when we kill Russian economy, we will win the war. So it's also kind of fight on the economic front. And the fourth is our membership in the EU, because I think that all the obligations Ukraine has will help us to move forward very fast. We just don't have any other choices. We just have to implement these targets. And I really hope that next year, when we will be discussing the energy sector, we already will be discussing how we opened this energy chapter in the accession negotiations. And we will also have some very particular ideas, policies, measures, and projects, which we will be happy to show you. Thank you.
I'm truly impressed with the fact that the government is already looking at not just sort of the immediate needs, but like literally how you would go about, to some extent, obviously destruction of the infrastructure is quite painful, but you're trying to sort of make sort of lemonade out of that system and be able to sort of leapfrog, as that's the term you use. And it's not just sort of the power sector, but also even transportation sector. It's not, and so I mean that's quite impressive. I'm sure. I mean, I think a couple of you also, have, are looking at different types of like attributes as you want to see the future of the Ukrainian energy system. Alexander, you probably have quite a bit of thought that you'd like to share.
Well, definitely a lot of thoughts and a lot of work to do. And like Olena mentioned, it's important to have the projects in the pipeline, so to be able. And I would like to kind of pay your attention, maybe on the chair, is a kind of list of this project and the QR code. And we together with all mayors who are here at Mykolaiv, Kyiv, Vinnytsia, and many other cities, contributed to this project pipeline and prepared many very precise, very practical things, which is not now. Most of them are public-private partnership projects, which is good. Some of them private, some of them related to social or infrastructure things, but everyone can find what they like. So, and the total amount of this project is 1.5 billion, quite a lot, but each of them is like a treasure and important, like a time to pay attention and to see. So it's a first part, and we understand that there are a lot of money and there is huge liquidity right now. And our task is, and the task of each mayors or each developers who develop some projects, to prepare bankable projects. And because if you want to make a deal, we should prepare from both sides. I remember a time when we met with Carl Swan last year and started to think what financial instruments should be prepared for Ukraine to accept this. We started the discussion last year, and yesterday, we had a very comprehensive conversation this meeting, and I appreciate to your team which you did in terms of preparing different type of tools for small enterprises, for middle enterprises, for big enterprises. And it's really important right now. And it's for Ukrainian business, it's now chance to get it and to apply. But it's not only one source of capital. So there's different type of capital which should be deployed. And one of them is Ukraine facility. It's a very successful project of Ukrainian government in cooperation with European Commission. 50 billion euro was prepared less than the half of the year by the Minister of Economy. As Minister of Finance, it was kind of big team game to apply till the end of the last year the Ukrainian plan with the comprehensive projects. And there are the three pillars. One of them related to kind of for budget support. The second one is Ukrainian investment framework. Right now, it's accumulated 9.8 billion euro. And if you're talking about energy and renewables, which I and many of us believe is the future of Ukraine in the European resilience and independence, 20% from this amount allocated for renewables right now. It's a huge work of many NGOs, think tanks who advocated. And we want the same approach to be used by other partners. So right now, from this facility, 20%. So we would like to make a call to actions to the US government and to the US partners to allocate at least 20, at least 30% to renewables as well, because we need extremely huge amount of money. And 20% from Ukraine facility from you is definitely not enough. Only from my conversation with the business, which I did yesterday, only wind energy right now has on the table around 2 billion euros of projects. So it's a huge. And we have absorption capacity to build more. So, call to actions, try to make a priority in any financial programs for renewables. Another source of capital is the frozen assets, Russian frozen assets, which still under the question when we receive this money. 50 billion of them is under discussions. And the US can play a very important role in this and to make a political push. So there is nothing, there is no kind of bottlenecks in terms of create legal mechanism how to deploy it. So we need to accumulate this political push and make it. Because Ukraine, not tight, but time is important for us. It's a third kind of big box where we would like to relocate to Ukraine recovery. And the third one is investment of many funds, pension funds, investment banks, insurance companies, which are still in Russian oil and gas companies. Why oil and gas companies will make stress on this type of assets? Because when money working in this industry, it means they finance the war. If we stop this investment, it immediately stops the war. It's faster. It's kind of very important to understand. And we make a third call to action to stop investment and do withdrawal, to do divestment from these assets. So all these three boxes can help to build Ukrainian renewables sector quite sufficient.
Thank you, Alexander. I think the security, sort of defense type security issue and energy security in the system are really intertwined. Both you need one to address the other, but you still need the other half to underpin security. Before, I guess that was sort of a great segue to some much more robust conversation around the investment. But before I do that, I wasn't sure if anyone else has some comments you'd like to offer about how you like to see the future energy system, fuel mix. Nadia, do you have, or Tomas? Otherwise,
maybe one comment.
Yeah, sure, please.
Because as Ukraine is now receiving a lot of donor infrastructure, energy infrastructure, USAID, generators that go to different municipalities, which we're all thankful for. Now, it's good that Ukraine now thinking about how to integrate those into the long-term strategy. So how those piston or turbines will then operate and compete with solar and wind energy, right? So that needs to be all well thought through how it will be integrated in the sort of the target system. Alex, you were mentioning about those four factors. I'm also thinking, how do we build in Ukraine the factories that will basically build the turbines and the towers? This is another industry that needs to be built, and Ukraine needs to make sort of industry out of the renewable industry. This is what we see elsewhere in Central Europe, and especially taking into account the time it takes to produce the energy equipment. And now it's not the issue of money, it's the fact that to commission a turbine, it takes what, 50 months, no, 80 months? No, sorry, that's 1.5 to 2 years, right? So that's a long, even if you have it designed, if you send it to buy it, it's not off-the-shelf product. And Ukraine, in order, again, to be more resilient and make industry out of it, should now think how to attract the contractors to build it in Ukraine. And Ukraine has the facilities, or can build the facilities, and has the brain power and good engineers to do it.
Thank you, Tomas. Now let me bring you in, Carlos, if I may. So, obviously the DFC has been quite engaged, as you said. Your engagement predates obviously the Russian war. But I wanted to get your sort of, I guess, thoughts. I mean, as someone that's been looking at the country's potential, but then also some of the challenges. What are some of the features or characteristics of Ukrainian situation that you think are, should be better appreciated by external stakeholders, private capital firms that may be considering? Yep.
Sure, yeah, thank you. It's a great question. And as you mentioned, I think, as I said earlier, we've managed to commit over $900 million in deals over the last 2.5 years. And I think that's indicative of the opportunities that exist in Ukraine. Obviously, it is a very challenging situation. There are physical challenges. There's a war going on. Bombs are dropping, as people here know very clearly. But there is also the ability to do things, to do new things, to seize the opportunity and to take advantage of the situation and move the country forward. And we're seeing that across a number of different sectors, and I think in the energy sector especially, I think there's going to be a lot of development and a lot of new interesting things happening as that sector changes and moves from a very centralized system to maybe a more decentralized system, a greener system, one that is connected to Europe and part of the European system. Obviously, there needs to be lots of transparency. That's important for investors to feel that they can invest and feel that their investment is safe. Clear regulations are going to be very important. And I know that we've been doing work with the government and with other folks to make sure that regulations are supportive of the market, supportive of green projects, and probably needs to do some more on that, but I think we're moving in that direction, and we continue to think of ways that we can continue to incentivize investors. But it's really about looking at what are those opportunities, seeing those opportunities. And one of the things that we've done, which I mentioned earlier, is a lot of what DFC can do is try to help investors manage their risks in some of these challenging markets. We, as a development finance institution, we tend to work mostly in challenging markets. If it's not a war, then it's some other issue which is challenging. So a lot of our tools are geared at trying to take on some of that risk ourselves so that investors feel a little bit more comfortable making those investments. So that can be through our political risk insurance product, which covers, for example, war risk. That's something that's been, very much in demand and something that we continue to see a lot of interest in, but also some of the loan guarantees and portfolio loan guarantees, which encourage local banks to make more investments, use some of their own capital. And ultimately, we're trying to bring in more private sector investment, more private capital to support the economy and the people of Ukraine and kind of in the long term.
Ukraine essentially inherited sort of a Soviet-style, very centralized system initially, but there has been obviously, from what I'm hearing from panelists, there's much sort of a emerging private sector forces, which is extremely encouraging. And if I'm not mistaken, the DFC also tries to support more of a private private sector-led initiatives. Like, how would you also describe the evolution? Is that something that you also?
Yeah, our focus is the private sector. Our mandate is to mobilize private capital. So we are working. Our projects are private sector by nature and by our own mandate. That's what we work with. Obviously, we work very closely with our colleagues at USAID and the State Department and other parts of the U.S. government, so that we have a coordinated approach. And was mentioned earlier, USAID is doing an amazing amount of work with some of the emergency assistance and generators and so on that are trying to assist kind of in the very, very near term. But I think long term, there's a general awareness that you're going to have a private sector there that's investing, that can help invest in not only just in the energy sector, but really in all of the reconstruction, because it's not going to be, the needs are so great, it's not something that any government is going to be able to carry on its own. So you're going to have a private sector that can carry that forward, that can help with that. And certainly we're seeing more and more people looking at places like the energy sector as places where they can make investments. I think there's still a lot of concerns, and still investors are thinking about it. I think we've seen a lot of local investors, local private investors, but I think increasingly you're seeing some of the external investors also start to look at opportunities and have conversations with us. And I hope that we will continue to see more of that as we move forward.
Thank you. Maybe I think the next question probably is best to be raised with Tomas, if I may. So, so what would you, I mean, there are all these governments, I think G7 is also looking to really, as a collective group, trying to mobilize, but what are some of the things that you think that the US can do, including, sort of mobilizing private finance, but what are some of the capacities that the Ukrainian colleagues really look to the US, to be able to bring? Are there some, maybe standard setting issues, considerations? Are there other sort of a non-monetary things that the United States can help bring to the table?
I think that's a great question. I mean, a lot of, we talk about the technology and technologies that US have, and that technologies could be either adopted in Ukraine, technologies adopted in Ukraine, or maybe at least tested, because Ukraine now is a great testing ground for those technologies, but not only in generation, but also maybe transmissions, microgrids, but also cooperation between private investors, cities, donors, and the government. How? Because you need to, it will take a village to rebuild Ukraine, and it will take a village to rebuild the Ukraine's energy sector, a lot of stakeholders, and that consultation, that experience that we have from US or maybe other markets as well, how to combine the private startup sector and regulatory authorities to work out the best system would be particularly useful, as well as funding of those investments and funding of those new sort of solutions. Yeah.
No, thank you. Do other colleagues from Ukraine have some of the thoughts as to how the U.S. could be doing more? Not just the U.S. government. What are some of the things that you look, to the United States and perhaps other like-minded countries, and also private sector to help? Olena?
Go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I'll start. First of all, I'm really grateful. I think I will say on behalf of all Ukrainians, I'm really grateful for all the support U.S. citizens, U.S. government is providing to Ukraine, because I mean, this is not a secret that our economy is in a bad shape, and everything what we need to fight, actually, we are expecting to, as a help from our international partners, and we are grateful for all the support which is provided and is providing now. Saying that, I think that when we are discussing the long-term reconstruction, I think it is really important to think how to integrate value chains in Ukraine. Yes, how to not just to sell the products to Ukraine, but also to think how to stay in Ukraine, how to develop businesses in Ukraine, how to, as I said, build the value chains in Ukraine, because this is where our economy will grow. This is where our workforce will be created, and we'll probably have a chance to get back our people from outside. This is what will help us to generate some profit for the country, for the future. And if business can think from that perspective, I think this would be really beneficial for Ukraine. And just mentioning the creation or development or manufacturing of turbines, yes, in Ukraine, I just wanted to reiterate that we have a good resources for that. Ukraine has a rich critical raw materials potential, and being also geographically located quite well near the European Union, which will need a lot of renewable resources for the future and for its decarbonization strategy, I think Ukraine can be a good place to invest, not just in I don't know, production of critical raw materials or just selling something, but production, processing, manufacturing, and then building the markets around. So if you could think on this long-term cooperation, I understand that it's not easy to do so within the existing condition, but it would be really important if we talk about long-term development of the country.
Thank you. Alexander, do you have some
Yeah,
comments?
on top of that, the US has, as far as I understand, quite successful measure like Inflation Reduction Act, which stimulate productions of creating many facilities to produce equipments and renewables, etc. And I believe that having this big capacity of production is a good point to do transfer of technology maybe from the US in this domain is one of the idea. Another idea to sell to Ukraine some of the most advanced products in renewables. Again, leveraging this Inflation Reduction Act tool. So, because in Europe we don't have it like this. In Europe, all measures are, how to say it, very divided by a small different approach. I studied this case and I see it's very well decentralized, very good incentives to stimulate renewable energy and this energy transition in general in the US. So we would like to kind of get maximum from this, the first point. And the second point, we actually will do 2 roundtables, one in DC and one in New York. In New York, we will do this Friday. In DC, we will do next Monday to collect the rest like-minded people and to think and to try to find the precise answer on these questions. What the US can do in that, how to mobilize capital, how to work together and how to build win-win partnerships, because it's very important. So we don't ask help, we want to build mutual beneficial cooperation. And if someone would like to join these discussions, please come to me and I will provide you registration code for this.
Great. I think we have only a couple minutes left. I wanted to definitely sort of invite everyone to probably spend a minute. Sort of, you know, if there's one thing that you really think it could not be overemphasized to the Washington policy community, but then also more importantly, the US investment community about the opportunity or think about, you know, Ukrainian efforts to not just sort of survive, but also to, you know, reconstruct the energy system. This is the time. Let me actually go down the aisle this way, if I may. Tomas, please.
I really believe that Ukraine has all the fundamentals to have a strong energy, diversified energy system. If you look at the vast amounts of land, the wind, the solar, the big agriculture that will provide input for the bio production. It has nuclear facilities which will then help stabilize the system. And I keep saying there's enough good brain power to design, install, operate, and, you know, provide modern IT solutions that then run everything. It's all there. It's just, but then it needs to be designed and organized well with the right regulation so that the country can benefit the most and be attractive also destination for investment in the energy space.
Thank you. Nadia.
Thank you. I would like to say that currently Ukrainian energy sphere under evolution way, because we have changed our way of the renewables and the energy sphere. And currently our projects is totally correspond to all international standards and requirements. For instance, recently we received a positive assessment from IRENA, International Renewable Agency, about wind project 152 megawatts. On that positive assessment, they mentioned that project totally correspond to EBRD, MIGA, and IFC requirements. It is important for investors to know that Ukrainian is abundant not only resource, but also for the people who work tirelessly and with unyielding commitment. And this is one of the ways why I consider we should to consider about Ukrainian energy project now.
Thank you. Nadia.
Well, first of all, just let me thank you again for hosting this and for everyone here. It's really inspirational to hear folks who are actually in Ukraine working. So thank you for that. And on behalf of DFC, let me just say, you know, we've been in Ukraine for many years. We're there now. We're not waiting for the war to end, and we are committed to being there in the future. We are very eager to take advantage of our tools to support the private sector across all sectors, but right now we're very interested in doing more in the energy sector, and very excited to have some follow-up conversations that we had yesterday with the mayors, but also on some other projects, and very happy to continue to have this conversation with other players as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Carlos, really, for the leadership. And
Thank you very much again for the possibility to talk. But if I may say, not as an energy expert, but as a citizen of Ukraine, we definitely should discuss the reconstruction of Ukraine, and we should define technologies, money, regulation, everything now in order then to start very fast when it is possible. But we need to win the war as soon as possible. And let me just, if we are talking about the policymakers, yes, your question was about policymakers, so I think the main message to the policymakers would be we need weapons, we need support in order to win the war as soon as possible. Because of the delays, we had several chances to do so. Because of the delays, we are still here, and we really need to move much more faster to win the war. So please stay with us, help us, and let's win this war as soon as possible. Thank you.
And I can say the same point from which I started. So to mobilize capital and to do something with frozen assets, to allow use of frozen assets for Ukrainian recovery and for Ukrainian resilience and building Ukrainian better.
thank you, Alexander. On behalf of CSIS, thank you to every one of you for your interest in this very important topic. It's a challenge that I think U.S. is in as a partner, strong partner to Ukraine, and I hope you'll stay engaged and interested in hearing the progress, but then also opportunities forward. Thank you so much, and please join me in thanking the panel.